And I'll give you kind of an analogy here to think about. If you were out there and you were going to buy a new house, and if you guys can harken back to 08, 09, before we had the housing crisis, there's a lot of reasons that happened. But one of the things that was kind of a bugger during that time and created a lot of pain and consternation was these adjustable rate mortgages that people were getting into. And so maybe, it had a 5-year fixed rate, but it had an arm, and then after that it would adjust, or it was like had this jumbo provision or whatever it may be. But the bottom line is it wasn't consistent. The mortgage rate wasn't just a 30-year fixed mortgage. And then when things adjusted, a lot of these people that bought these homes couldn't afford them anymore. If you knew, as an example, that was you, and you had one of those mortgages that after 5 years, the rate was going to adjust up, and you knew that, and you were trying to prepare for it. Well, what's one thing you could do to prepare for it? Well, ideally, if you can afford to do it, you try to pay as much of the house off as you can in the first 5 years before it adjusts up, so that you're saving a bunch of this future higher interest rate on a much larger balance. Another thing you could do is you could go out and try to refinance the mortgage and get a different mortgage. But at the end of the day, if you know that it's coming, you try to plan in a way that's most beneficial to you, not most beneficial to the mortgage company, right? We have to think about the IRS that way, because it's the same thing. We know, that any money that you have that you owe taxes on, which is going to be things like your IRA, 401k, 403b, 457 plans, TSPs, any pre-tax type money that you have, money that at some point in your life you put away without paying the tax bill, and that at a future date, you have to pay that tax bill. Well, when should you pay the tax bill? Well, in a lot of cases or scenarios for married couples, the answer is while you're both still alive, because the tax code is just such more advantageous. It's less compressed. You have higher deductions, things of that nature. And so in that instance, one of the things we talk to families about all the time is, hey, look, if you're sitting on piles of IRA money, 401k money, or the like, one of the things you start thinking about is paying off your debt to the IRS, making more than the minimum payment, so to speak, in my mortgage analogy, to get rid of some of that debt while you're both still here, and we have a more advantageous tax return for you, tax situation. So what that would look like practically, let's just say, I'm going to make up numbers. You're a married couple, you're retired, you have $1 million in an IRA, and you're looking at it and you're like, well, Brad, and you say the same thing to me that most of your peers say to me, which is, I don't really need the money right now, and we're not really going to spend it. And I don't want to pull it out of there because I don't want to pay the tax bill. But then here I come in and I go, okay, I know you don't want to spend it, and I probably can't convince you to take that extra vacation or, to do these other things. And so fine, I'll let you have the fact that you don't need to spend it. But what I do think we should do is we should pay some of that tax bill. You're like, okay, well, why? Why would I pull that money out and pay the tax bill before I have to? Which, if you're unfamiliar, different podcast episode, that's called an RMD. There is a point later in life where they are going to make you start taking that money out. And so you can continue to defer it for now, but eventually you're going to have to pay the piper. And if you don't pay off all the debt before you die, the debt just goes to whoever you give the money to, surviving spouse, kids, or otherwise. So my contention is very simple. We should try to pay off the debt to the IRS, the money that you earned in a past year, past life, when you're working years. You didn't pay off the tax bill when you earned it. You deferred it to today. We could continue to defer it longer, or, hear me out, we could start paying it now. Okay, Brad, why would I do that? Well, because you and your spouse are both still alive. I would run you through the same widow's tax scenario that I just ran through and said, if we start paying this off now, we get married filing joint rates, we get married filing joint standard deductions, and because of that, we can start to pay them off today at a lesser rate than if we leave the IRA balance, because you don't need it, so you don't want to spend it, so you leave it in the IRA. Then spouse A passes away. Now spouse B has to go through the same exercise, except it's not at the rates you used to pay. It's at higher rates due to compressed tax brackets and less standard deduction, amongst other things. All of a sudden, it starts to come into view. You're like, I'm prepaying my mortgage is what I'm doing. Because all of us out there, I'm one of those people. I have a mortgage, okay? And the deal with the bank, I've got a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And so I can just make the minimum payment every month for 30 years. And at the end of it, I'm paid off and they've got their interest. It's also possible I could make extra payments. I could pay more than I have to. Well, why would I do that? Because I have to give up cash flow. I have to give up money today. Well, I'm doing it because I know that it saves me money tomorrow. I pay less interest to the bank. The faster I pay them off, the less interest I pay to the bank. And so it behooves me, or is in my best interest long-term, to do that. Short term, it's actually not because I have to give up my cash flow. But a lot of you listening probably have done that. You probably have made extra payments to your mortgage over time and tried to pay it off faster. Maybe it's just because you don't like debt. But for a lot of you, it's because you're like, look, I'm going to save a bunch of interest if I can pay this off faster. So that's what I'm going to do. This is the same thing. It's saying, look, I know when the first spouse passes away, my rate is going to adjust up. I don't know how far up, but adjust up significantly. So while we're both still here and the rate adjusts, before the rate adjusts up, let's start removing some of these assets out of this IRA and paying the bill so that the surviving spouse isn't left with the adjustable rate debt to the IRS. We're going to pay it off while we're both still here and let them have tax-free money or taxed less money at my death. It's just a planning opportunity. It's an opportunity for married couples to keep more of their money and give less of it to the IRS.